The sunlight hit my face, warm and heavy, but my head felt like it was stuffed with cotton. I blinked, trying to shake off the lingering fog. This house always smelled like cedar and old books, the scent of my grandfather's legacy. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Julian whispered. He was standing by the bed, holding a steaming ceramic mug. "Hey," I rasped, pushing myself up against the headboard. "What time is it?" "Nearly 10, you were out cold." He handed me the coffee, his fingers lingering against mine. "That herbal tea I made you last night really did the trick, huh?" I took a sip, the caffeine biting through the haze. "Maybe too much. I feel like I've been underwater." Julian sat on the edge of the mattress, smoothing the duvet. "You've been stressed, Elias. You deserve the rest? Think about it, soon we'll be in Paris, away from all these maintenance costs and dusty hallways. Just us." "I love this place, Julian. It's my history." I reached for my wedding ring on the nightstand, but my hand met bare wood. I frowned, patting the surface. "Wait, where's my ring?" Julian laughed, a quick, airy sound. "You probably dropped it when you were stumbling around last night. You were practically a zombie." "I always put it right there," I muttered, looking at the floor. "Don't worry about it now," he said, pulling me up by my arms. "Let's go outside. The garden is beautiful today." We walked through the French doors onto the patio. The air was crisp. I looked at the ivy crawling up the brick walls my grandfather had laid himself. "I was thinking," I said, leaning against the stone railing. "I want to start the library renovations next month. If we knock out that north wall, we can fit the floor-to-ceiling mahogany shelves." Julian didn't answer immediately. He was staring at the house, his expression unreadable. "Julian? The library?" He blinked, a tight smile finally appearing. "Right, the library. It sounds expensive." "It's an investment," I argued. "This estate is the world to me. I want our kids to grow up here." "The world is a big place, Elias," he said softly. "Why stay in one spot when you can have the cash to see it all?" "Because this is home. You promised you'd help me preserve it." "And I keep my promises," he said, though his eyes remained cold, darting toward the driveway. "I just want what's best for us. Total freedom." "I'm free here," I replied, feeling a strange chill despite the sun. "I have everything I need." "You have a lot of things," Julian murmured. He checked his watch. "Listen, I have to run a few errands in town. Why don't you go back and lie down? You still look a bit pale." "I'm fine, really. I'll walk you to the car." "No!" He snapped it too fast, then softened his tone. "No, stay. Enjoy the breeze. I'll be back before lunch." He kissed my forehead. It felt clinical, like a doctor checking a patient. As he walked away, I noticed he was carrying a leather briefcase I hadn't seen in months. "Julian, you forgot your phone," I called out. "I have it." He shouted back without turning around. I watched him drive away, my heart heavy for a reason I couldn't name. I looked back at my house, the golden stone glowing. I was the king of my own little world. I didn't know the gates had already been sold. The silence Julian left behind was heavy. I sat on the porch, nursing the last of my coffee, trying to shake the lingering lethargy. That tea really had knocked me out. My thoughts were interrupted by the crunch of gravel. A sleek, black SUV pulled into the driveway, followed by a second car. "Can I help you?" I called out, standing up as a man in a sharp charcoal suit stepped out. Two large men in matching polo shirts followed him like shadows. "Elias Thorne?" the man asked. He didn't wait for an answer. He pulled a thick manila folder from his leather briefcase. "I think you have the wrong house, Mr. Henderson," I said, forced a polite smile. "I'm not selling." "You've already sold, Mr. Thorne," he replied. His voice was cold, professional, and entirely devoid of humor. "The closing was finalized yesterday. We're here for the initial walkthrough." I let out a short, nervous laugh. "That's impossible. This is my family home." "I haven't signed a single paper. Is that so?" Henderson stepped onto the porch, invading my personal space. He flipped open the folder and held up a document. "Is this your signature, Elias?" I looked down. My heart performed a sickening somersault. There it was. My name, written in my exact slightly slanted cursive. The date was yesterday. "The notary stamp says otherwise," Henderson said, pulling the paper back. "Look, I don't care about your domestic drama. I have a legal deed of sale. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises. After that, we bring in the crews to begin the gutting process. It's a historical landmark, my voice cracked. I dialed Julian. Ring. Ring. Voicemail. Try him all you want, Henderson muttered, signaling his men to start taking photos of the exterior. He's the one who handed us the keys to the digital vault. He was very motivated to close quickly. Where is he? I screamed into the phone, even though the line was dead. Julian! Pick up. I looked across the lawn. Mrs. Gable was standing on her porch, clutching her cardigan. She was just staring at me with a look of profound, devastating pity. She knew. How did she know? Mrs. Gable, I shouted. He had a visitor, Elias, she called back, her voice thin. A man in a suit. They were in there for hours, while you were napping. I thought you were finally moving on. It hit me like a physical blow to the stomach. He hadn't just helped me sleep. He had drugged me. He waited until I was dead to the world, then used my hand or a forged stamp to steal my life. This is fraud, I whispered, looking at Henderson. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, Henderson shrugged. But I have the deed, the payment confirmation to your joint account. You can't do this, I gasped, leaning against the doorframe. The wood felt foreign now, like it was rejecting me. This is my grandfather's house. It's my investment now, Henderson said, checking his watch. If you're still here on Thursday morning, my security team will physically remove you. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. He turned and walked back to his SUV. I stood there, clutching the railing as the world blurred. The walls I had spent my life maintaining suddenly felt like they were leaning inward, suffocating me. I was standing in a crime scene, and the man I drove to the bank like a madman, my tires screaming against the asphalt. My hands were slick with cold sweat on the steering wheel. This had to be a mistake, a bank error, a cruel joke. I need to check the balance on the joint savings account, I told the teller, my voice cracking. Elias and Julian Thorne. The woman tapped at her keyboard, her expression shifting from professional to pitying. Sir, that account was closed this morning at 9 a.m. Closed? By who, Mr. Julian Thorne? He withdrew the entire balance in a cashier's check. The entire balance? That's $200,000. That was my inheritance. Our future. I slammed my hand against the counter and the security guard shifted closer. I'm sorry, sir, she whispered. He had full authorization. I stumbled out of the bank, the sunlight blinding me. I drove straight to the marketing firm where Julian worked. I stormed past the receptionist, heading for his corner office. Elias? What are you doing here? It was Mr. Vance, Julian's boss. He was standing in the hallway, looking confused. He even had a goodbye party. The floor felt like it was tilting. 2 weeks? He left for work every single morning. He kissed me goodbye at 8 a.m. today. He packed his desk and cleared his HR file on the first of the month. I didn't stay to hear more. Every I love you over the last year had been a line in a script. I called Marcus, my oldest friend, and told him to meet me at the diner on 4th Street. When I arrived, I couldn't even hold the coffee cup. It rattled against the saucer until a dark brown pool spread across the table. Elias, stop. He quit his job weeks ago. I've been living with a stranger. He scanned it with a lawyer's practiced eye, his jaw tightening. This notary signature. I know this guy, Marcus muttered. He's a bottom feeder. He'll stamp anything for a few $100. Can we stop it? Can we sue? Marcus looked at me, his eyes grim. Elias, look at the trail. He moved the money. He liquidated the assets, and he's disappeared. This isn't just a messy divorce, buddy. This is a professional heist. He didn't just want to leave you, he wanted to erase you. I gave him everything, I whispered, staring at the spilled coffee. I trusted him with my life. He knew that, Marcus said, his voice dropping. That's why it worked. He played the long game. He wanted to ensure you had no floor to stand on when he pulled the rug. I looked out the window at the busy street. Somewhere out there, Julian was laughing. He had my house, my money, and my pride. He thought he had destroyed me. But as the trembling in my hands finally stopped, a new sensation took over. It was a cold, sharp spark of clarity. He missed one thing, Marcus, I said, my voice finally steady. What's that? He left me alive. And I'm going to make him regret that mistake. The neon sign outside the motel flickered, casting a rhythmic, sickly blue light across the stained carpet. I sat on the edge of the bed, the springs groaning under my weight. My world was currently contained within a single duffel bag and Julian's old laptop. The one with the broken hinge he'd replaced months ago. "Come on, you piece of junk," I whispered, tapping the keys. "Give me something." The screen flickered to life. I began digging through folders, my breath hitching every time I saw a thumbnail of his face. Then I found a folder titled Project Future buried inside a system driver directory. Project Future? Is that what I was? A project? I clicked. Julian was laughing in a way I'd never seen not with me. He was with a woman with sharp features and blonde hair. Sarah. "Wait, that's Sarah," I said to the empty, silent room. He told me she was his sister. He said she lived in London. In the photos, they weren't acting like siblings. They were on a beach, her arms wrapped around his neck, his hands resting intimately on her waist. The name on the title wasn't Julian Thorne, it was Julian Vane. I asked the screen. I reached for my phone and called Marcus. It was nearly midnight, but he picked up on the second ring. "I'm at the Elms Motel. Marcus, I found his old laptop. He's not who he said he was. And Sarah isn't his sister." What do you mean?" "Like, together. And I found a deed for a place in the mountains." He called it a safe house. Once when we were watching a spy movie, I thought he was joking. I think he's there. "Elias, stay put," Marcus warned. "Don't do anything stupid. If he's a professional con artist, he's dangerous." "He stole my grandfather's house, Marcus. He drugged me. He's probably sitting by a fireplace right now." "I didn't go to the mountains." A single credit card notification, a stray alert Julian forgot to disable. Placed him at L'Avenue, the most expensive bistro in the city. He wasn't hiding. He was celebrating. I pushed through the heavy oak doors, the scent of truffle oil and arrogance filling my nose. I spotted them in a corner booth. Julian was laughing, holding a glass of vintage champagne. Sarah sat across from him, draped in a silk dress that probably cost more than my car. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a chair. I walked over with the steady gait of a man who had nothing left to lose and slid into the booth right next to Julian. "Elias?" Julian's voice went up an octave. His face drained of color, turning a sickly shade of gray. What are you doing here?" "You left your laptop, Julian," I said, my voice terrifyingly calm. "And you left the tracking on your shared dining app. You always were sloppy with the details." "Look, Elias," he stammered, his hands shaking so hard the champagne sloshed over the rim. "I can explain. I did this for us. I had to sell the house to save our lives." "Is that the lie we're going with?" I looked at Sarah. "And I suppose the sister is here to help you manage the trauma?" Sarah rolled her eyes, leaning back with a look of pure disgust. "Drop the act, Julian. He found us." "So what?" "The papers are signed. The money is moved. There's nothing this little architect can do about it." "You're a real piece of work, Sarah," I said. "Does he tell you he loves you using the same script he used on me? Or do you two just skip the romance and count my grandfather's money?" "Elias, please," Julian whispered, leaning in. "Let's go outside. We can work something out. I'll give you some of the cash back." "Some of it?" I laughed, the sound sharp and cold. "You're not in a position to negotiate. I spent the morning with the district attorney. The police are on their way here right now. They have the footage from the bedroom camera you forgot about." "Camera?" Julian's eyes darted to the door. "What camera?" "The one I installed for security last month," I lied, keeping my expression like stone. "It caught everything. The drugging, the forging, all of it. They're 5 minutes away." "Julian, we have to go," Sarah hissed, grabbing her clutch. "I told you he'd be trouble." I didn't mean to hurt you, Elias." Julian scrambled out of the booth, nearly tripping over his own feet. "Run," I said, picking up his glass and taking a slow sip. "But you can't run from a digital trail." They bolted. They didn't even look back, weaving through the crowded tables and disappearing out the side exit. I sat there in the sudden silence, the bubbles of the champagne stinging my throat. The waiter approached, looking confused. "Is everything all right, sir?" The other guests left in quite a hurry. They had a pressing engagement with reality. I said, sliding the bill toward myself, "I'll be taking care of this." It was an expensive meal I hadn't eaten, but seeing the pure, unadulterated terror in Julian's eyes was worth every cent. I hadn't called the police yet, but I'd done something better. I'd watched Sarah's face when Julian offered me money. I'd planted the seed. Now I just had to watch it grow. "Drink this," Marcus said, sliding a bottle of water across his mahogany desk. "You look like you haven't slept since the Reagan administration." "I'm fine, Marcus. Did you find it?" I leaned forward, my eyes burning from staring at legal PDFs all night. Marcus pulled a heavy leather-bound volume from his shelf. Your grandfather was a genius, Elias. He didn't just build a house. He built a fortress. He placed the estate into a living heritage trust back in the 80s. I know it's a trust, but Julian found a way around the signature, I muttered. Section 4, subsection B states that any transfer of title requires a certificate of architectural preservation from the city planning board. It's a permit that proves the buyer won't demolish the history. I frowned. And Julian didn't get one? He couldn't have. The board only meets once a month. And I checked the public records. No application was ever filed. Without that permit, the deed Henderson is holding isn't worth the paper it's printed on. It's a legal nullity. I stood up, paced the room, and then stopped. So we can stop the eviction right now? We could, Marcus said. I can file an injunction by noon. Why do you have that look on your face? Because if we stop it now, Henderson gets his money back from the escrow, and Julian just runs away with whatever he's already drained. I don't want him to just fail, Marcus. I want him to plummet. Elias, what are you suggesting? Let the sale proceed. Let Henderson think he's won. Let Julian think he's a millionaire. I want him to spend every penny. I want him to buy the cars, the jewelry, the flights. That's dangerous, Marcus warned. If he spends it, the money is gone. Not if I know where it's going. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Hey, Leo? It's Elias. I need your eyes on something digital, something messy. 2 hours later, I was in a dimly lit apartment smelling of energy drinks and scorched circuit boards. My cousin Leo didn't look up from his 3-monitor setup. Your husband is a busy man, Elias, Leo said, his fingers dancing across the mechanical keyboard. He's not just moving money, he's layering it. He sent 50 grand to a shell company in Panama 10 minutes ago. Can you track the rest? I'm already in his ghost browser. He's got an offshore account in the Caymans. He thinks he's being clever using a VPN, but he's using a public server for his sister. My phone vibrated against the wooden table of the coffee shop. It was an unknown number, but the area code was from out of state. I hesitated before picking up. Hello? This is Elias. Elias Thorne? My name is Elena, a woman's voice said. She sounded tired, her tone carrying a weight I recognized instantly. I saw your post in the historical preservation group about your house. The one about the accidental sale? Yes, I said, sitting up straighter. Who is this? I'm the ghost of your husband's past, she replied with a bitter edge. 5 years ago, I was Mrs. Julian Vane, except then he went by the name Julian Vance. He didn't sell my house, he sold my family's winery in Oregon while I was hospitalized with pneumonia. The air left my lungs. He's done this before? You're sure it's him? He has a scar on his left shoulder from a kitchen accident, right? And he makes a special herbal tea for when you're feeling stressed? Yes, I whispered. God, yes. I'm in the city, Elias. We need to talk. Meet me at the park bench near the clock tower in 20 minutes. When I arrived, Elena was already there. She looked older than her years, with sharp eyes that scanned the perimeter. She didn't offer a handshake, she just held out a folder. He's a predator, Elias. He targets people with assets and no immediate family to intervene. He plays the long game. 3 years of marriage, then the liquidation. How does he get away with the legal side? I asked, flipping through her documents. The signatures are perfect. Even the bank was fooled. He doesn't do it alone, Elena said, pointing to a name on a witness statement. Look at the notary stamp on your deed. Does it say Arthur P. Sneed? I checked the digital copy on my phone. Yes, that's him. Henderson mentioned him too. Arthur is the key. He's a disgraced law clerk who keeps his notary commission active through a series of shell companies. Julian pays him 20% of the take to certify the signing even if the victim is unconscious or miles away. Without Arthur, Julian's just a liar. With him, he's a legal ghost. Where can I find this Arthur? He runs a tax prep office in the basement of a laundromat on 5th. But be careful. If Arthur gets spooked, he'll shred everything. And Julian will vanish into the next state with a new name. I'm not going to spook him, I said, feeling a cold resolve settle over me. I'm going to use him. Why didn't you go to the police 5 years ago, Elena? I did, but Julian had already moved the money to offshore accounts I couldn't trace. The police said it was a civil matter because we were married. By the time I found the fraud evidence, he was gone. Well, he's not gone this time, I said, standing up. I have a hacker tracking his every move, and a lawyer who found a trust loophole. You gave me the final piece. I have the name of the man who held the pen, What are you going to do? Elena asked, looking up at me. I'm going to close the trap, I replied. Julian thinks he's playing a game of solitaire. He has no idea I've turned it into a hunt. My phone chimed in the darkness of the motel room. I stared at the screen. Julian. My thumb hovered over the red button, but I took a breath and swiped to answer. I needed this. Elias, are you there? His voice was thick with tears, trembling in a way that would have broken my heart a week ago. I'm here, Julian, I said, my voice intentionally soft. Where are you? She has records of my old debts. She told me if I didn't help her get the house, she'd send people after us. After you. I did it to protect you. The sheer audacity of the lie made my skin crawl. I looked at the laptop screen where Leo's tracker showed Julian was currently at a boutique hotel, likely ordering room service. To protect me? I asked, playing the part of the grieving, confused husband. You sold my grandfather's legacy to protect me? You drugged me, Julian. I had to make sure you were out so you wouldn't get hurt when the notary came. Sarah was watching the house. I've been a prisoner, Elias. She took the bank cards. I have nothing. You seemed pretty happy at L'Avenue the other day, I remarked dryly. That was a mask. I had to pretend. She's right here in the other room, Elias. I'm whispering in the bathroom. I love you. I want to come home. Please tell me you'll help me. I closed my eyes, realizing in that moment that I had never truly known him. I had fallen in love with the character he had written for me. The man on the phone didn't exist. He was just a collection of manipulations. If you want my help, Julian, you have to prove it, I said, my voice shaking with forced emotion. I can't go to the police. I'm too scared. But the developer, Henderson, he's coming to the house tomorrow to finalize the walkthrough. If you meet me there an hour early, we can talk. We can figure out how to stop this together. You'd forgive me? You'd let me come back? I just want my life back, Julian. I want us back. But I need to see you. I need to know you're real. I'll be there, Elias. I promise. 8 sharp. Don't tell anyone, especially not that lawyer Marcus. He hates me. I won't tell Marcus, I lied. I'll see you tomorrow. I hung up and immediately looked at the man sitting in the shadows of the motel corner. Detective Miller clicked off his recorder. You're a good actor, Mr. Thorne, Miller said, his badge glinting in the blue light of the neon sign. He fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Is the wire ready? I asked, my resolve hardening into something cold and sharp. We'll have the house rigged by 6 a.m. I'll be in the van with my team. All we need is for him to admit he used Sneed to forge those documents while you were incapacitated. Once he says the words, the fraud charge sticks. And Sarah? We've got a tail on her. If she shows up, we take them both. But Elias, are you sure you're up for this? Seeing him again in that house is going to be a lot. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. The man staring back didn't look like the architect who cried over historical preservation. He looked like a hunter. The house is just wood and stone, detective, I said. What matters is the truth. I spent years living in a mirror maze he built for me. Tomorrow, I'm going to watch those mirrors shatter. Just stick to the script, Miller warned. Make him feel safe. Make him feel like he's won you back. I know exactly what to do, I replied. I'm going to give him the world, just like he promised me. And then I'm going to watch him lose it all. The morning air was cold, biting through my jacket as I pulled up to the gate. My house stood tall, a silent witness to the betrayal that had unfolded within its walls. I saw Julian's car parked near the fountain. He was leaning against the hood, looking every bit the grieving husband I'd talked to on the phone, until he saw Henderson's SUV pull in right behind me. Elias! You came, Julian said, rushing toward me. He tried to grab my hands, his eyes wide with fake desperation. We can fix this, right? You talked to Henderson? I'm here to finalize things, Julian, I said, stepping back to avoid his touch. My heart was thumping against my ribs, but my voice remained flat. Finalize? Julian's brow furrowed. He looked at Henderson, who was stepping out of his vehicle with a scowl. Mr. Henderson, good morning. We're just discussing the transition. Transition my foot, Henderson snapped. It's been 48 hours. I have a demolition crew on standby. Where are the keys, Thorne? Wait, I said, raising my hand. Marcus stepped out from behind me, carrying a leather briefcase that looked like a weapon. Mr. Henderson, there's been a significant legal oversight. Legal oversight? Henderson laughed, a harsh, dry sound. I have a signed deed and a witness. Get off my property. It's not your property, Marcus said, pulling out a sheaf of papers. This estate is protected by a living heritage trust. According to city law, any sale without a specific architectural permit is void. Did you receive that permit, Mr. Henderson? Henderson's eyes darted to Julian. He said all the permits were in the digital vault. He lied, Marcus replied. And more importantly, we have a statement from the notary, Arthur Smead. He's currently in custody, admitting that he stamped this deed while my client was drugged and unconscious. Julian's face went from pale to ghostly white. Elias, what is he talking about? I told you Sarah made me— Stop it, Julian, I interrupted, the disgust finally boiling over. I know about the offshore accounts. I know about Elena. I know Sarah isn't your sister. You tracked the money? Julian stammered. He looked at the driveway, realizing the police vans were blocking his exit. Every cent, I said. And Henderson, you might want to look at your bank transfer. The $700,000 you sent? It didn't go to a secure escrow. It went to a shell company Julian set up 3 weeks ago. Henderson turned toward Julian, his face reddening until it looked like it might burst. You stole from me? You sold me a fake deed and took my money? I can explain? Julian cried, backing away. It was all a mistake. Elias, tell him. The only mistake was thinking I was too weak to fight back, I said. Detective Miller stepped forward, showing his badge. Julian Thorne, you're under arrest for grand larceny, forgery, and domestic battery via drugging. You can't do this. Julian screamed as the officers grabbed his arms. Elias, I love you. I did it for us. You did it for yourself, I said, watching as they pressed his head down into the police car. You promised me the world, Julian. But you're going to spend the next decade staring at a concrete wall. Henderson stepped up to me, his jaw tight. I lost a lot of money today, Thorne. Your husband is a dead man. Take it up with the warden, I replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. But if your crew touches one stone of this house, Marcus will have you in court before the first brick falls. Get off my land. Henderson spat on the gravel, but he signaled his bodyguards to leave. I stood there, the silence returning to the garden. I watched the tail lights of the police cruiser disappear down the road. Julian's smugness had vanished, replaced by the raw, ugly terror of a man who finally realized the house always wins. You okay? Marcus asked, putting a hand on my shoulder. I will be, I said, looking up at the library windows. I just need to change the locks, every single one of them. We have the evidence, Elias. He's never coming back. I know, I whispered. I felt the weight of the last few days finally lifting. I wasn't just holding a set of keys. I was holding my life. And this time, I wasn't letting go. The driveway was a sea of flashing red and blue lights. Just as the officers were about to close the door on Julian, a silver sedan screeched to a halt behind the police vans. Sarah jumped out, her eyes frantic, her designer handbag swinging wildly. Wait, stop! She screamed, pointing a manicured finger at Julian. He did it! He's the one who planned the whole thing. I was just an investor. I didn't know he drugged anyone. Julian's head snapped toward her, his face twisting into a mask of pure venom. You lying snake. You're the one who found the buyer. You're the one who told me Elias was too stupid to notice the money was gone. I never said that. Sarah shrieked, backing away from Detective Miller. Officer, he's a professional. He has offshore accounts I don't even have access to. He's been playing me just as much as he played Elias. Playing you? Julian let out a hysterical, jagged laugh. You spent $20,000 of Henderson's deposit on a diamond tennis brought yesterday. Tell them about the Oregon winery, Sarah. Tell them how you helped him burn Elena's life to the ground. Shut up, Julianne! She hissed, her voice dropping to a terrifying growl. No, I won't shut up. Julian turned back to Miller, his voice desperate. I'll tell you everything. I'll give you the names of the brokers. Just don't let her pin this on me. She's the architect of the fraud, not me. I walked down the porch steps, the gravel crunching under my boots. I stopped a few feet away from the squad car. They both went silent, staring at me like I was a ghost that had suddenly decided to speak. Elias, Julian whimpered, his eyes welling up with tears that finally looked real terror at least. Please, you know me. You know I'm not a bad— The courtroom doors creaked as I stepped out into the hallway. For 6 months, those doors had felt like the jaws of a beast, threatening to swallow my future. But today, the sound was different. It sounded like an ending. We did it, Elias, Marcus said, clapping a heavy hand on my shoulder. The judge signed the final order. The deed is officially restored to your name. Vanguard Acquisitions has been ordered to cease all claims. And the money, Marcus? The offshore accounts? I asked, my voice steady for the first time in months. Leo's ghost mirror worked better than we hoped. Because Julian was flagged for fraud before the final transfer cleared, the Cayman's bank froze the assets. You're getting 90% of your inheritance back by Friday. The rest went to legal fees, but I think it was worth it. Every penny, I whispered. Is it really over? Julian is heading to state prison tomorrow. Sarah is right behind him. They're done, Elias. You won. I drove back to the house, but I didn't feel the panic that usually rose in my chest when I turned onto my street. I parked the car and walked up the front steps. I used my new key, the third set of locks I'd installed, and pushed the door open. The house was empty. Henderson's crew had moved my furniture into storage during the dispute, and the rooms were nothing but echoing expanses of hardwood and dust motes dancing in the light. I walked into the living room, my footsteps sounding like drum beats. I'm home, I said to the empty air. My voice didn't shake. A soft knock at the back door made me jump. I walked to the kitchen and saw Mrs. Gable standing there, holding a steaming dish wrapped in a checkered cloth. I saw your car, Elias, she said as I opened the door. I figured you might be hungry. It's blackberry pie. Your grandfather's favorite. Thank you, Mrs. Gable. That's incredibly kind. I was so worried, dear, she said, stepping inside and looking at the bare walls. When those men were here with their clipboards and their hammers, I thought the neighborhood was losing its heart. But look at you. You look taller than you did last year. I smiled, taking the pie from her. I feel different. I used to think this house was my anchor. I thought if I lost it, I'd just float away. And now? Now, I realize I'm the one holding the anchor. Julian didn't just take my things, he took my illusions. Pain does that, she murmured, patting my arm. It turns coal into diamonds if you let it. Are you going to sell? Start over somewhere else? No, I said, looking toward the library. I'm going to rebuild, not just the walls but the life I want. This house survived 100 years of storms before Julian showed up. It can survive a little betrayal, that's the spirit. If you need help painting, you know where I am. After she left, I sat on the floor in the center of the living room, eating a slice of pie with a plastic fork. The emptiness didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt like a blank canvas. I realized that Julian had done me a favor in a twisted, cruel way. He had cleared out the clutter. He had shown me that I wasn't just an architect of buildings. I was the architect of my own survival. I was Elias Thorne, and I was finally standing on solid ground. The smell of fresh cedar shavings filled the air in my study. I was hunched over my drafting table, the soft scratch of my pencil against the vellum the only sound in the house. I was sketching the blueprints for the new conservatory. My phone buzzed, vibrating against a stack of samples. I picked it up without looking. Elias speaking. It's Marcus. I just got the call from the clerk's office. The sentencing is official. I leaned back, my heart giving a small, steady thrum. And? What's the damage? 10 years, Elias. 10 years in a high-security state facility for multiple counts of fraud, grand larceny, and identity theft. The judge didn't hold back. He called Julian a parasite on the pillars of trust. And Sarah? I asked, tracing a line on my drawing. She took the plea deal, just like we thought. 5 years for her, but she had to testify against Julian in 3 other open fraud cases. She burned him to the ground to save herself. Apparently, they were screaming at each other in the holding cell after the verdict. Good, I said. They deserve each other's company, or lack of it. Are you okay, Elias? You sound quiet. I'm more than okay, Marcus. I'm finally finished with them. I'm actually working on the new wing right now. It feels right to build something new instead of just fixing what's broken. I'm glad to hear that. You've earned some peace. I'll send over the final paperwork for the restitution funds tomorrow. Thanks, Marcus, for everything. I hung up and looked out the window. The garden was thriving. I had spent the weekend planting white roses where Julian used to hide his retreat luggage. I walked over and picked it up. There was no return address, just a series of stamped numbers and a prison postmark from the county jail. I recognized the handwriting instantly. It was Julian's, elegant, practiced, and utterly fake. I sat down in the armchair by the fireplace and turned the envelope over in my hands. I didn't need to open it to know what it said. I could hear his voice in my head. Elias, my love, I'm so sorry. I'm a changed man. I wake up every day thinking of you. I still love you. Always a script, I whispered to the empty room. I thought about the 3 years I had spent with him. I thought about the tea, the stolen ring, and the cold look in his eyes at the restaurant. I realized that the man who wrote this letter didn't exist. But my heart wasn't made of soft tissue anymore. It was made of the same reinforced steel I was putting into the house. I walked over to the hearth. The fire was low, just a bed of glowing orange coals. I held the letter over the heat for a moment. I dropped the envelope into the center of the embers. The paper curled, the edges turning black and then sparking into a bright